The Fall of Giants. The galaxy was not a kind place. It was ancient, cruel, and ruled by monsters. Across countless worlds, one name inspired nothing but terror: the Zenvari, apex predators of the void. These towering creatures, clad in organic armor stronger than battleship hulls, had reigned for thousands of years, treating lesser species like cattle. Empires had fallen to them. Armadas had burned before them. Entire civilizations had been erased from history by their insatiable hunger. And now, they were coming for Earth. The United Terran Federation had seen the pattern. First, strange disappearances along the outer colonies, entire planets reduced to lifeless husks. Then the distress signals, barely reaching command before being cut off in chilling silence. Humanity had fought enemies before, but nothing like this. Nothing like the Zenvari. Yet, unlike the others before them, humanity did not run. They sharpened their knives. They built their walls. They studied the predators that haunted the stars and did what humans did best. They prepared for war. The last warning. Aboard the UTS Valkyrie, one of the most advanced Terran warships ever constructed, Admiral Elias Voss stood on the bridge, arms crossed, watching the swirling void through the viewport. The dim glow of distant stars was swallowed by the monstrous shadow beyond. The Zenvari war fleet. It had arrived. At the heart of the alien armada floated the apex dreadnought, a living fortress, pulsating with eerie violet energy. It was an abomination, its surface shifting as if alive, its countless eyes watching, waiting. Every species that had ever faced the Zenvari had understood one thing: surrender was not an option. But humanity never learned to kneel. A transmission crackled through the bridge, heavy with static. A voice, not words, but thoughts, invasive and crawling like insects inside the mind, filled the air. Humans, we have seen your kind before. You will end as they did. Your bodies will feed the next cycle. Admiral Voss smirked. They think we're just another species to be devoured. He leaned forward, activating the transmission. Zenvari, this is Admiral Elias Voss of the United Terran Federation. We know what you are. We know what you've done. You've spent eons feasting on the weak. But we are not weak. A pause. Then the alien voice slithered back. Your resistance is meaningless. Your fate was sealed the moment we set our eyes upon your world. The Admiral smiled coldly. You should have kept your eyes closed. He cut the transmission. Prepare for engagement. Across the fleet, Terran warships shifted into position, weapons priming. Humanity had spent decades preparing for this war. The Zenvari thought they were the apex predators of the galaxy. They had no idea what monsters humanity had become. The first strike. The Zenvari didn't believe in diplomacy. The apex dreadnought pulsed with a wave of gravitational energy, sending black spears of energy lancing through space. The first wave of Terran cruisers shattered instantly, imploding as their hulls collapsed under the sheer force. Explosions bloomed like dying stars, wreckage scattering across the void. But humanity had learned. The remaining warships shifted, engines flaring as they adapted their formations in real time. Fighters screamed between capital ships, weaving through incoming fire. Terran railguns thundered, sending hypersonic projectiles slamming into the Zenvari hulls, piercing their once invulnerable hides. The aliens reeled. Admiral Voss grinned as the enemy faltered. We spent years studying your biology, he muttered. Every great predator has a weakness, and humanity had found it. The Zenvari were designed to hunt prey, not fight an opponent that fought back. Their armor, impenetrable to plasma and laser weaponry, was susceptible to kinetic impact, something no other race had exploited. But humans? Humans were really good at breaking things. The roar of the apex. The battle spiraled into chaos. The apex dreadnought, sensing the shift in momentum, unleashed its true form. Its shifting surface split apart, revealing something grotesque. A mouth, wide enough to swallow a city whole. It roared. The sound didn't just travel, it infected. Across the Terran fleet, crew members screamed as something primal flooded their minds. The Zenvari weren't just predators. They were evolutionary nightmares, designed to paralyze prey with fear. Admiral Voss felt the pressure in his skull, the whispers clawing at his sanity. But he had one advantage. He was human. He had spent his entire life fighting through fear. All ships, fire everything. From the depths of space, the full wrath of humanity was unleashed. Kinetic bombardments tore through the Zenvari warships, splintering their flesh-like hulls. Eye-guided missiles wove through enemy formations, detonating in waves of fire and plasma. The Apex Dreadnought, once an unstoppable force, now found itself on the defensive, and humanity did not let up. "Bring in the Erebus cannon," Voss ordered. A mechanical hum vibrated through the bridge. From the UTS Valkyrie's lower hull, a hidden weapon emerged, a railgun the size of a skyscraper, forged from the very essence of neutron star fragments. It was not made for war. It was made for eradication. The Apex Dreadnought, sensing its doom, screeched into the void, trying to escape. But there was no escape. Fire. The Erebus cannon roared. A single projectile, moving at a fraction of the speed of light, ripped through the enemy capital ship, detonating in a white-hot singularity. The Apex Dreadnought did not explode. It was simply erased, wiped from existence like a name carved into sand. Silence fell. Then, across the galaxy, every Zenvari ship stopped moving. For the first time in millennia, the apex predators of the universe felt fear. Humanity had not just fought back. They had hunted the hunters. And the war was far from over. The hunt begins. The moment the Apex Dreadnought was erased from existence, the Zenvari froze. Across the battlefield, the once relentless alien warships ceased their movements as if reality itself had betrayed them. These creatures, who had ruled the stars uncontested for thousands of years, had just witnessed something they never thought possible. One of their own had been hunted down. Humanity had killed an apex. Admiral Elias Voss stood on the Valkyrie's bridge, his hands resting on the console, watching the battlefield shift. His crew was catching their breath, but he knew the fight wasn't over. No war was won with a single kill. He leaned forward, activating the fleet-wide transmission. "This is Admiral Voss. You all saw what just happened. We can kill them. They thought they were untouchable. They thought we were prey." His voice sharpened. They were wrong. The fleet roared in response, as if the very fire in their veins had ignited into something unstoppable. Humanity had fought wars before, had lost soldiers, and sacrificed nations, but never had they been given such a clear purpose: to exterminate the beasts that had preyed on the helpless for eons. The Zenvari had never encountered a species like humanity, and now they would regret it. The psychology of fear. Above the planet Tartarus 9, deep within Zenvari-controlled space, Supreme Apex Karzor watched the battle unfold through his psionic vision, his mind linked to every surviving Zenvari fleet commander. The images were wrong. Impossible. The Apex Dreadnought, a vessel that had obliterated entire planetary systems, was gone. Not damaged, not crippled. Erased. The humans had done this. Karzor turned his mind toward the elders of the Great Brood, the ancient ones who had guided their species to dominance since before the rise of the first galactic empires. "They have killed one of us," Karzor spoke into the Void Network, the shared mental link of his kind. "The lesser creatures have learned to hunt." The elders were silent for a moment. Then, a deep voice, one that had not spoken in centuries, reverberated through the link. "Then they must be culled." Karzor's mandibles clicked, his black carapace shifting as he knelt before the ancient consciousness that had spoken. The Broodmond had awoken, and it demanded blood. The bloodied sky. Back in the Sol system, the Terran fleet regrouped, scanning the remains of the battlefield. The wreckage of destroyed Zenvari ships drifted through space, eerily lifeless. "They're not retaliating," Ava Monroe, lead communications officer, said with a frown. "They just stopped." Admiral Voss narrowed his eyes. "They're thinking." Blake, standing beside him, looked unsettled. "You think we scared them?" Voss scoffed. "No, we angered them." At that moment, a hyperspace distortion rippled across the system, sending shockwaves through every ship's sensors. Contact. Multiple incoming warp signatures, hundreds of them. The void before them split open like a ruptured wound, and from the darkness, an unstoppable tide emerged. Zenvari warships, thousands of them, materialized into real space. But they were not like the ones they had just fought. They were larger, stronger, different. Their sleek, living metal hulls pulsed with red bioluminescence, their bodies now adapting to what had just transpired. These were not the same beasts that had floated after the Apex dreadnought fell. These were warforms, creatures bred and engineered specifically to hunt those who dared to stand against the brood. And humanity had just become their primary target. Planetfall. Hell arrives on Mars. Within minutes, the entire Martian defense grid was overwhelmed. The Zenvari didn't just come to fight. They came to butcher. Swarms of biodrones, insectoid horrors, the size of fighter jets, crashed through orbital defenses and descended upon Mars like a biblical plague. Civilians screamed as the skies turned black with chidnus wings, their organic weaponry melting through steel and flesh alike. The Terran ground forces, seasoned veterans of countless conflicts, held their ground. Mechs thundered through the streets, unloading railgun fire into the horde, while mechanized infantry fought in brutal, close-quarters combat against the invading monstrosities. On the front lines, Captain Jonah Briggs, a hardened warfighter, fired round after round into the skull of a Zenvari drone. The creature screeched as its body collapsed, acidic blood eating through the pavement. Briggs turned to his squad. "Hold the damn line. We're not letting these freaks take one more step." The battle raged, explosions shaking the ground as Terran airstrikes rained down, turning entire districts into flaming wastelands. Mars was not just a colony. It was humanity's first home beyond Earth. And the Zenvari had made a fatal mistake by attacking it. They hadn't invaded a planet. They had stepped into a war zone. The Terran counterstrike. As Zenvari warships continued pouring into the system, Admiral Voss's voice rang through every military channel. "No more running. No more hiding. We take the fight to them." The moment he gave the order, humanity unleashed hell. Mass driver platforms positioned around the Jovian moons fired kinetic lances, cutting Zenvari vessels in half. Terran stealth bombers emerged from Titan's shadow, striking deep into enemy formations. Orbital artillery platforms from Luna rained superheated tungsten shells upon the alien swarm. The Zenvari had adapted, but so had humanity. On Mars, Captain Briggs's unit launched a daring counteroffensive, pushing through the ruined streets, executing the invaders with ruthless efficiency. Mechs stomped through the wreckage, their autocannons chewing through Zenvari warforms as if they were nothing more than insects. For the first time in history, humanity was not just fighting for survival. They were winning. The end of fear. As the battle reached its climax, Admiral Voss turned his gaze toward the burning void. The Zenvari, once thought unstoppable, were now bleeding. Their warships drifted in ruins, their soldiers cut down, their unshakable aura of terror shattered. He exhaled. "Send a transmission to the remaining Zenvari commanders," he ordered. Ava, her hands still shaking from adrenaline, nodded and activated the broadcast. Voss leaned forward, his voice calm, cold, and absolute. "You came to hunt us. You thought we were prey." He paused, letting the silence stretch before delivering humanity's final message. "But you have just made a fatal mistake." A beat. Then his voice dropped to a whisper. "We hunt back." The transmission cut. Across the battlefield, the entire Terran fleet advanced, a tidal wave of fire and vengeance. And for the first time in their existence, the Zenvari, the great apex predators of the universe, felt something they had never known before. They felt hunted. The day the hunters became the hunted. The galaxy had always feared the Zenvari. For thousands of years, they had been the apex predators, the unstoppable force that crushed civilizations underfoot. They hunted for sport, consumed entire species, and left only silence in their wake. But today, for the first time in their existence, they ran. From the burning skies of Mars to the shattered remains of their once mighty fleet, the Zenvari were in retreat, and humanity was chasing them down. The pursuit begins. Admiral, the remaining Zenvari forces are breaking formation. Ava Monroe's voice echoed through the command deck of the Valkyrie, her hands flying over the controls as she relayed real-time battlefield updates. They're pulling back, trying to escape through hyperspace. Admiral Elias Voss watched the holomap of the system, his expression carved from steel. The Zenvari had never fled before, never needed to. Their entire existence had been absolute dominance, but now they were scrambling like cornered animals. A slow, cold smile spread across his face. Do not let them leave. The order rang across the entire Terran fleet. Within moments, humanity's warships surged forward, cutting off every possible escape vector. Disruptor fields flared, preventing enemy vessels from activating their hyperdrives. Fighter squadrons screamed through the void, harrying the crippled remnants of the Zenvari armada. There would be no surrender. There would be no escape. The fall of the Great Brood. Deep within the Zenvari void nexus, Supreme Apex Karzor knelt before the Broodmind, the ancient intelligence that ruled over their kind. "Forgive me," Karzor rasped, his carapace trembling with shame. "I have failed you." The Broodmind's presence was suffocating, an ocean of thought that crushed lesser minds. It had guided the Zenvari since time immemorial, directing their conquests, ensuring their supremacy. But now, for the first time, it knew fear. They have become the greater predators, the Broodmind whispered into Karzor's mind. They have broken the cycle. Karzor's mandibles clicked in frustration. Then we must adapt. We must. You do not understand, the Broodmind interrupted. We have spent eons hunting prey. We have never fought equals. Silence fell. For the first time, the Zenvari were not unstoppable. For the first time, they were losing. Karzor straightened. Then we must flee. We must find new hunting grounds, rebuild. No. The Broodmind's voice darkened. They will never stop. They are not like the others. It sent Karzor a vision, a future drenched in fire and blood. A human warfleet, larger than anything the Zenvari had ever faced, sweeping through their homeworlds like a plague of destruction. Their fortresses crumbling. Their younglings slaughtered. Their species wiped from existence. Karzor's breath hitched. Then what do we do? He whispered. The Broodmind was silent for a long time. Then it answered. We beg. The battlefield turned silent. Back aboard the Valkyrie, Admiral Voss watched as the last Zenvari ships were pulled out of hyperspace, their escape routes shattered. Admiral, Ava said, her voice tense, we're receiving a transmission. Voss arched an eyebrow. From who? Ava hesitated. Then, in a whisper, she said, from the Zenvari. The bridge fell into dead silence. For as long as humanity had known of them, the Zenvari had never spoken to their victims, never negotiated, because apex predators did not negotiate with prey. But now they were the ones pleading for survival. Put it through, Voss said. The holo display flickered, and for the first time, a Zenvari leader appeared before humanity's eyes. Supreme Apex Karzor's image materialized, his once proud, terrifying form now drenched in submission. His mandibles twitched. His violet eyes, once burning with the cold arrogance of a hunter, now held something else. Desperation. He bowed his head. Terrans, he rasped. We surrender. The moment that changed everything. For a long moment, no one spoke. Every soldier, every pilot, every crew member across the entire Terran fleet heard those words. The Zenvari, the galaxy's most feared predators, had surrendered. The bridge crew of the Valkyrie stared at the display in shock. Blake muttered, "Never thought I'd see the day." Voss leaned forward, locking eyes with the alien warlord. His voice was quiet, but sharp as a blade. "Why?" Karzor's mandibles clicked. "Because we have seen our end. You are not prey. You are not weak. You are death given form." A shiver ran through the room. The Zenvari were not capable of lying. It was biologically impossible for them. They were not tricksters, not schemers. Their strength had always been in brutality and truth. And right now, the truth was this. They had no future if humanity continued this war. Voss tilted his head. "You expect mercy." Karzor hesitated, then slowly nodded. Voss smiled. It was not kind. It was not forgiving. It was the smile of a predator staring at something weaker. And Karzor recognized it. He had seen that smile before, on his own kind. Voss leaned forward, his voice barely above a whisper. "You should have left us alone." Then he cut the transmission. "All ships," Voss ordered, "fire at will." And the Terran fleet descended upon the Zenvari homeworlds like gods of vengeance. The end of an apex species. The war did not last much longer. The Zenvari fought like cornered beasts, but humanity fought like executioners. One by one, their fortresses fell. Their warships were reduced to ash. Their greatest breeding worlds were set aflame. There would be no truce, no survivors. The Zenvari had spent millennia hunting the weak, and now, the strong had come for them. And when the fires of war finally died, when the last Zenvari stronghold crumbled into dust, only one truth remained. The apex predators of the galaxy were gone, and humanity stood alone at the top of the food chain. The future of the hunters. In the years that followed, the war became legend. The name Zenvari faded into history, whispered only as a warning to those who would seek to threaten humanity again. Because now, when the galaxy looked at Earth, they did not see prey. They saw the hunters of hunters, and they knew one thing above all else. No one would ever hunt humanity again.